All right, welcome everybody to our internships. We have internships from the intern's point of view. Is that Annette? Oh, yeah. Oh, awesome. Great. Well, Annette, how do you pronounce your last name? Unrau. All right. Annette Unrau serves as the registrar and archivist at the Bountiful Davis Arts Center, where she manages a 50-year collection, creates, registers, and ensures the preservation of community art and history. Annette is currently pursuing a master's in library and information science with a focus on archival studies at San Jose State University and is completing the creation of adult programs for Fold 3 military record database at the Hill Aerospace Museum. With a background in genealogy, photography, and cultural heritage, Annette brings a creative and community-centered approach to archival work. Do I want to give the files for everybody, and then we can jump in. Great. And then afterwards, we're going to have a little bit of a slice of archives developing focused internships. And our presenters will be Jim Kichas from the Utah State Archives and Record Service, Rebecca Wiederhold from Brigham Young University, and Karen Glenn from Brigham Young University. Jim is a certified archivist and digital archive specialist and brings over 22 years of combined experience, including 15 years as a processing and reference archivist and 7 years in administration. Jim received the 2023 SEMA Mentor Award and served as SEMA Treasurer from 2012 to 2016 and President from 2017 to 2018, and served as past member and chair of the Utah Manuscripts Association, and currently coordinates the Utah State Historical Records Advisory Board and chairs the Cottonwood Heights Historic Committee. He holds an MS in Environmental Humanities from the University of Utah and an MLIS from Drexel University. Rebecca is the chair of the Cataloging and Metadata Department at the Brigham Young University Library, where she reviews finding aids for institutional descriptive standards and DAX compliance, and catalogs, archives, and manuscripts collections. She earned a master's degree in library science from the University of North Texas in 2014 and has been a certified archivist since 2020. And Karen Glenn is a certified archivist and the head of the archival processing section at Brigham Young University Library in Provo, where she coordinates manuscript processing for special collections. She received her MS in Library and Information Science from Simmons University in 2014 and has worked in archives in Washington, D.C., Massachusetts, and Ohio. So I will turn the time over to our group. And yeah, there's a clicker here and you're welcome to start. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. So I was thinking this morning as I was driving here, this is a culmination of 7-year adventure. So I raised my kids and then I started off as a volunteer at the Family Search Library. And when I started, they asked me where I wanted to go. And I said, give me Grumpy and I'm good to go. And I ended up in the B1 International floor. And my volunteer work ended up into a internship that was split between 2 interns, and the intern that was serving with me or working with me, she could be my daughter. And so we had a lot of fun together in the cubicle. And one day she turned to me and she said, you know, Nettie, I don't think they realize that you don't know as much as they think you know because you're older, which was an interesting experience because she recognized that they didn't recognize that I didn't know what they thought I did. And because I'm a mom who raised 5 kids and knew how to get people out the door, I was like, I'm down, let's get it done. And I don't know what I'm doing, but we'll work it through. So my process started kind of on a crash course. And I still remember the first day when I told a mentor that I wanted to learn about the Prussian Empire and wanted to become accredited and had all these overarching goals, and I had no idea what I was stepping into, and it has been one great journey. The image that you see here on this first slide is what I started as a service missionary or volunteer at the Churches for Family Search Library. I met a woman at the grocery store, and she was like, yeah, I have German ancestry and I don't really know anything about them. And then it turned out she knew my kids and all this other stuff. And she wasn't actually of German descent. She was of Austrian descent. And I started with this collection of papers, and this image kind of got me really excited about archival work. So let's see if this works. Oh, yes. So the slides are the culmination of what I've learned over the 7 years, and it's the presentable format, but I will tell you also the stories and the experience, because one of the things that I noticed for interns is that as an older, mature adult, and having an ENTJ Myers-Briggs personality characteristics, I launch in and I like to get things done, and I ask questions, and I am curious, and I want to know information, and I want to do things right. Whereas some of my younger counterparts who are fresh out of college or just in college and were the first time away from home and now in the workforce did not know what to expect. And they don't always ask questions because they're afraid of asking questions. And I even had an experience at the church history library as an intern where I overheard these two ladies talking and they needed help on something. And I was like, oh, I can help with that. I'll go make friends with them. So I wandered around the other side of the cubicles and I was like, who asked that question now about search features? And they're like, oh, I did. You heard that? And I unfortunately made the mistake, having been up at the vault with only 5 people for about 4 weeks and having absolute silence. Coming downtown, I was hearing a lot of chattering, and I was like, oh, well, I could hear everything you're saying because you guys talk a lot. And I was like, oops, that was a mistake. And I was like, oh, I just scared the sheep away. And as I walked around the other side back to my cubicle, I overheard one lady say to the other one, why were you talking to her? Well, she worked over at Family Search. She was, a German genealogist. And she's like, well, she's just an intern. I was furious. I literally wanted to jump up on my table and yell over on the other side, I can hear everything you're saying. Instead, I went and addressed it a different way. But it's really important that interns not feel like they're just the intern, because they bring so much. And when I was hired on as an intern, another intern had been hired on with me, and she became the other intern. So we had an ongoing joke within our team that used AI images to show us as interns and what we were doing. And we had a lot of fun with it. And it was a good way to address also, this idea of no one's just an intern, no one's just anything. We are so much more. And that much more comes by way of what mentors and an organization have to instill in us. I'd like to know by show of hands, how many of you have been interns? You know what I'm talking about. So why internships matter? Internships are pivotal for shaping archival professionals. I've had the opportunity to be an intern at the Family Search Library, where I worked as a German genealogy reference consultant, helping with French, German, Polish, Cyrillic, Germans from Russia, Danish, Dutch, all sorts of things. That required a lot of pivoting and changing and adaptations. Then I was a intern at the Church History Library, where I was sent to the vault. When they called me to tell me they wanted to interview me, I was actually traveling in Germany. I thought I blew the interview because they wanted to know about spreadsheets. I didn't know anything about spreadsheets. I mean, I knew about spreadsheets, but I didn't know you could use them to create a register, because up until that point, as a reference, my job was to access records from a database and teach someone else how to do it in a very simplified manner, and also do triage and build confidence and hope that this person would come back to the product to use it on their own at home, and then suggest to them where there would be resources and sources available to help them continue on their journey, so that they can, advocate for us as librarians and as archivists. And that was exciting, but I didn't know what went on behind the scenes and never understood the experience between librarians and archivists and genealogists. I was in Germany at the Hamburg State Archives doing research on my own family history. I know I don't sound like a German, but I can pick up the German accent and speak like one. And while I was there, I didn't know that I needed €1 to put into the locker. There were a bunch of little things, and I walk into it, and they're behind glass, the archivists, and I make my request, and then I ran into a problem that when I requested something online, it looked different than the piece of paper that was in hand, and I'm not making the connection. So I go to the desk and I say, can you explain this to me? And I watch the one archivist lean over to the other and he goes, Sie kann ganz gut Deutsch sprechen. She can speak pretty well German. And I say, Sie kann auch ganz gut hören. She can listen very well too. And he was like, oh, you heard that? And I said, yes, I did. And so by the time I left after about 2 weeks, they're like, hey, Frau Unrau, how was it? I'm like, that was great. It was quite an experience. A lot of the impact depends on the structure and clear responsibilities and goals. When I started as an intern in my different areas, I'm also a registrar. I received a grant through the Bountiful Davis Art Center to create a register and identify pertinent information in their collection, their 50-year collection. And then also I walked into the Hill Aerospace Museum one day. I saw a sign that showed Uncle Sam and it said, we want you, we need volunteers. So I was like, this sounds cool. So I walked down, found a bunch of volunteers. They're all veterans. The oldest one was 92. And I'm like, who's in charge here? And he goes, we all are. And he goes, what can you do? And I said, this is what I can do. And he's like, well, you need to go talk to this person. And that got me a scholarship to work on the current project that I have at the Aerospace Museum. Interestingly, as an intern, we walk into it thinking you guys are organized and you guys have a plan, or we walk into it thinking we're going to do one thing and you end up turning out doing a different thing. And so we adapt. So communication is essential. Which is that next point, regular check-ins and feedback. One of the things that I really loved at the church history libraries, I had a supervisor that was fantastic. I was the one that pushed for it, and it ended up turning into one-to-ones, which was I wanted to know, where am I at? How am I doing? Because I had no idea. Like, I didn't know that it was impressive that I could process 127 books in a day. And then on another day, I would come in, I'm like, hey, my slidey key is not working. And they're like, don't give her the key. She's making more work for us. And I'm standing there going, did I just step in something? And it ended up being really good, but I was given a 6-month time limit to process 7,000 books. And I didn't know that they didn't know that I could actually do that. And I didn't know that I could do it either. And so having those one-to-one conversations were fantastic. Also, it helped me in understanding, or at least explaining, where I was coming from in communication, because I do speak German fluently. And when I speak German, I'm told for an American, I'm very, very nice. But when I speak English, I can be extremely direct. And if you don't hear the accent, the connection isn't made. And that directness can come across as being either provocative or pushy, when in reality, it's just, I want clear communication. And I'm working on softening that. And that was one of the best parts about working with my supervisor too, was working out, well, what is the culture of this organization, so that I don't make a bad impression or rub people the wrong way, and can do a good job. And I think when you look at interns that are in their 20s, they're still finding out who they are. They're still discovering what they can do. They're coming from a college program where there are hundreds of people in a classroom environment and a professor who may not know them, and now they're in the workforce and they don't understand, that so-and-so just got a huge project and they don't know how to start with it, or whatever other things that are going on internally within the organization. And so helping interns also understand that there are issues that arise within the company or institution, so that they can learn to navigate them, helps prepare them for the future, because they themselves will have these kinds of challenges as well. Mentorship, so guidance from experienced professionals, is crucial. The church history library actually, because I walked into one of the cubicles and said, hey, do you guys have mentors? I kind of want a mentor. I want someone who knows how to handle me and tell me what I need to do so I don't get myself in trouble. And he's like, yeah, we were just talking about that. And I ended up with a fantastic mentor, Natalie Permain. She's moved on to a different job, and she was incredibly good to work with. So the picture that you see of the Kölner Dome, I actually took that while I was traveling in Germany. And I feel like that intern with that yellow umbrella, stepping in front of this huge institution where you're like, I know what I'm doing. So, learning curves, adapting to institutional cultures. I talked a little bit about that, developing archival skills, you know, figuring out what you're good at. I want to be a reference librarian. I really enjoy that, but I got to go through the other process. So I did the cataloging and the register, and then the hardest part at the church history library, it was a 1-year internship. For 7 months, I'm up at the vault. Everyone's like, cool, you're at the vault. And I'm like, it's a cave. I don't even get to go see the books. They get delivered to me. I process them. I then put them back on the cart. I bring them back in. So when I show up downtown at the actual library, nobody knows who I am. And because I came from Family Search, which was open reference, and my job was to work 20 minutes with a patron, help them get the information they needed. Now I'm in a private library setting, not understanding that there is a big difference. And that created a wake because I ended up going upstairs after ordering an interlibrary loan book. I had identified a book to pilot that it was a record of missionaries book with the title Swiss Mission, 1917 through 1919. When I found the book, I knew it was special. It had a whole bunch of ephemera in it. And I was looking at it going, some of these locations are now defunct. I understood that with AI, we would be simplifying our cataloging procedure. And I knew that if I did not add those locations in the metadata part of you know, those segments, that they would not be identifiable because nobody would think to look for a defunct location in Russia, Poland, or Czechia under Swiss German mission during World War I. And I was like, were there even Americans in Europe at this time? And this book ended up getting digitized. This book also, I created a register for this book, which had like 700 people in it. And the link still does not work because it hasn't been worked on. So I stand now as an intern going, okay, if someone asks me, what did you do? How do I show them what I've done if it's not available to see? And that's another important aspect of internships, is that at the end we have a product or a folio or something so that we can demonstrate what we've done. Communication, so navigating expectations with a mature or experienced adult. I'm not going to say mature, but experienced adults, you can say, I know what to ask for. I know what I'm looking for. A lot of interns are not aware with their college account that they have access to learning on LinkedIn, which helps with creating resumes. Using AI now is super helpful. Nobody told me about that. And in consequence, we'd always have these like conversations where we're like, oh, we should have worked on our SOP with you. We should have done this with you. But we just thought, you know, you knew what you're doing, and you seemed to do just fine. And I did. Embracing constructive feedback. On one occasion, the intern and I didn't get along. I stepped in it and I realized it, and I tried to smooth things over, and it didn't work. So I brought it up with my supervisor to say, you know, how can I make things better? And the challenging part is this young woman could be my daughter. I have 5 children. My oldest is 30, my youngest is 23. And I'm standing there going, okay, I'm new to all of this, but how do I not let my momming skills get in the way of my professional skills, and make it clear too that I'm learning as I go. And we were able to find some common ground, and we were good friends. Growth, goals, and mentorship. I love this. Ever make mistakes in life? Let's make them birds. Yeah, they're birds now. I think that's an important aspect of when you're mentoring an intern, is they're going to make mistakes. I was at Catalina Island where one of my daughters is a camp director, and I overheard these 3 professionals talking. I was hiking back, and the one woman was saying, yeah, you know, interns, when they start, I mean, it's just really 6 months of wasted time. Like, and see, this is me being German, okay? I'm like, I'm not being critical, I'm stating a fact. And I looked at it and I was like, no, in 6 months, I processed 7,000 books without guidance, and I was doing most of my conversations through Teams with my supervisor. who was like, okay, what do you want to do here? And I was identifying also pilot programs and making suggestions, which he kept a running tab on. So really encourage and go into dialogue and ask them for their ideas, because they're coming with new ideas that you may not have considered. And it's not a threat, it's more of a, well, how can we collaborate together and make this happen? So setting realistic and meaningful milestones throughout the internship, if it's 3 months, 6 months, or a year, give them opportunities to grow and see their success, because frankly, I feel often like an impostor. I mean, here I am at 54 and I'm an intern instead of having a job. And I'm humorous about it, but at the same time, it does cause tears. So aligning personal interest with organizational needs. You know, I came in as a genealogist. I was at an archival conference in Paris after a part-time job at Family Search, and I was sitting at this archival conference in Paris, and I was thinking, I could actually help more people as an archivist than as a genealogist. How do I do that? And I didn't know where to turn. And literally, I also went through a divorce during that time. And I was sitting in my bathtub crying, thinking I was going to become the option was to become a pharmacy tech. Because, you know, it's a lot cheaper than going back to, you know, grad school. So reflecting on progress is really important. Mentorship matters. Consistent support builds confidence. Mentors' role as role models and advocates. I can tell you that I had different experiences with different people, and I wished more of the ladies had been more mentoring to me than some of the men that I'd had. Different experiences, but overall, I think at the end, at the Church History Library, I had a great experience, and I'm really sad when I leave my internships, because these people are teaching me how to navigate the workforce. And when I was a mom, I used to tell my kids to be brave, and I was like, you guys are going to go out and do great things. And then they go out to do great things and intern, and I wonder if they really are great or if they just think they're great. And this is where institutions and archivists and whoever they're working with can be all the difference in their success. And looking ahead, you see a picture of my mom, Pa, as I called them, and one of the interns that was on her way out. Mentorship matters. During my internship, I went through a divorce. I moved. I gave away my dog, and then I moved again. And I'm still here with a smile on my face getting things done. And it's because good people believed in me and gave me an opportunity, even coming here today. So make sure that you have best practices in place. Provide mentorship training. Don't be afraid. They want to know. They really do want to know. Don't just think they're there to sit around. Set clear expectations and learning outcomes. They'll appreciate it. Have them be part of that. Have them tell you what they want to do and help them navigate what they want to do so they can have realistic expectations and outcomes. Encourage open communication. And then when interns thrive, the profession strengthens. Let's build programs that empower the next generation of archivists. Remember that you too were once an intern, maybe a long time ago or not so long ago. Respect them, respect yourself, respect the institution and the records that we are using, and then record. I kept a record of my internship of each one. I had a running journal that I kept online. It was open. I let my supervisor see it so that he could understand what I was looking at. And we had a lot of great experiences, and that's my experience with being an intern. Thank you.
We got to swap. But Alex is here.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today about the internship program that we run at the Utah State Archives and Records Service. Basically, I'm going to kind of cover who we are as an institution. I think that will help frame the type of internships that we've developed. And then I'll kind of go into the evolution. We have about 15 years worth of experience in growing our program, a lot of lessons learned. And, we're at a place right now where it's very high functioning, part of our core programming that we're very proud of. So kind of just want to walk you through how that's looked for us. So first off, again, just kind of setting some context, who we are or who I'm representing as an organization, the Utah State Archives and Record Service. We're the government archive and institutional repository for government in Utah. That includes state government agencies, local government, all the elected offices, the judiciary, the legislature. If you're government, we're there to help you. Some key dates in our organizational history. If you know Utah history at all, 1896 is when we become a state. 1897, they hold this big event called the Pioneer Jubilee, where they invite everybody who had originally come into the Salt Lake Valley in 1847 to an event in Salt Lake. And one of the outcomes of that is the creation of the Utah Historical Society. The Historical Society exists as an organization that is made up of volunteers and a private organization until 1916, when a decision is made to make it part of state government in Utah. So we're one of the states where our Historical Society is a funded state agency as part of Utah government. In 1957, they established within the Utah Historical Society an Office of Military Records. The National Guard had a huge record set. They know that it was permanent. They needed to do something with it. They gave it to the Historical Society and created the Office of Military Records. In 1969, government in Utah undergoes a big transition. The governor at the time, Governor Rampton, sponsors what's called the Little Hoover Commission, where they go in, study how government is organized, try and figure out efficiencies and gains. It's at that time that the Office of Archives that had existed in the Historical Society was moved out of the Historical Society and made its own independent division within state government in Utah. So we are not part of our Historical Society. We are actually our own division within government. In 1979, the Information Practices Act gets passed, which becomes the first version of the code and the statute that guides all of our work at the Utah State Archives. We have to do everything according to our mandate and our what it says in the law. This is the first iteration of that. In 1981, we become part of the Department of Administrative Services, which is kind of on the surface seems like a weird fit, but it actually makes sense because in Utah, we have, as an organization, authority over the full life cycle of records. So not only are we providing archival services to government, we're also providing records management services. And so that's a very key part of who we are. It helps us get in the door with agencies as they're creating their records, learning how to manage their records, all the way to the point of disposition. When something has to happen to those records, we're there to step in and help them with that. Couple more key dates, and then I'll kind of talk about our core functions. 1991, that Information Practices Act gets replaced by what's called the Government Records Access and Management Act, or GRAMA. In Utah, this is what we follow. This helps define what records are in the state of Utah. It helps define how access happens. If you're a citizen and you want to make a records request, the process gets spelled out in our code. So very big key moment in our organizational history is the passage of this act. In 2004, the state legislature in Utah appropriated money where we were able to actually build a building for our use and specifically for our needs. So another milestone moment where before we had kind of been scattered, we had a small building up on our Capitol Hill where our administration lived, but the collection and everything was actually in rented space in a warehouse out on the west side of the valley. Brought everything together and allowed us to become integrated as an organization, which really I think was the first step in being able to then evolve into some of these next level things like building a volunteer and intern program. In 2005, we launched our digital archives. So we've been reformatting and posting things to our digital archives since 2005, currently up to almost 2 million individual records online. Between 2017 and 2014, or 2007 and 2014, our state got very interested in government transparency and what that looks like. So a series of initiatives were started that I'll talk about here in a minute. But those transparency services really came under the umbrella of the state archives, and it's something that we administer today. And then in 2021, this is the last sort of key point, our administrative services department changed. It brought in, or the legislature just made the decision to bring our human resources and our technology services into our department. So now our division sits alongside technology services, which is proving very beneficial for us as we make the transition into being able to do things with born digital materials. We can work directly with our technology folks, which is proving to be very effective. So what do we do at the Utah State Archives and Records Service? So one of our core functions and fundamental roles is to provide and support effective records management across state and local government. In practice, this means we provide essential guidance, consultation, training, and resources specifically for governmental entities throughout the state. This involves helping agencies understand their responsibilities for the records they create and that they manage. This includes everything from developing retention schedules to ensuring proper disposition of records when they're no longer needed for active business. The next core function for us is the sort of traditional what you think of in an archives. We follow records management process that I just discussed with the preservation and access of the permanent stuff. So you have this massive thing of government creating all of these records. A small amount of that record needs to get preserved and access needs to be provided to it in perpetuity. That's where we step in and help with our archival services. And then those transparency services that I mentioned, really they're sort of a new piece for us. But we serve as the primary subject matter expert in the state of Utah on the Government Records Access and Management Act. This means we provide crucial guidance, interpretation, and training on this complex law to governmental entities, and we help ensure that they understand their responsibilities and also that members of the public know how to access government records that they have a right to see. This expertise directly supports the core access and transparency services that help facilitate open government in Utah. Specifically for us, that means administration of what's called the Open Records Portal. This helps streamline the process for submitting and tracking a GRAMA request, which is very similar to a FOIA request on the federal level. We administer the Utah Public Notice website, which ensures that citizens are informed about the government meetings and business that happens. If you're a governmental entity and you hold an open and public meeting, you need to post about it on our public notice website. We oversee the Government Records Ombudsman, who provides invaluable mediation services to help resolve disputes over records access. This is a neutral resource that provides a benefit for both requesters and governmental entities. And we're currently in the midst of setting up a new office, the Office of Government Records, which will have an attorney that hears appeals regarding records access denials in the state. So if you appeal or if you make a request, it gets denied, you'll have the option of appealing to this office and having it heard. So these core functions are really define our primary responsibilities. And I wanted to cover that ground before I go into our intern program, because that really does frame the types of projects that we've created as an organization. So I've kind of characterized our intern program because it really is sort of a pre-pandemic, post-pandemic experience. The first iteration of what we might call our intern program began in 2010, and it started, as many programs do, out of a desire to provide opportunities for students and interested individuals to gain a hands-on experience in an archival setting. For nearly the first decade of the program, it operated primarily on a standing invitation model. This meant we didn't have formal recruitment cycles. Instead, interested or potential interns could volunteer, and they would typically reach out to us and inquire whether there was an opportunity for them to participate. Internally, our staff were encouraged to utilize the program and to mentor individuals when feasible projects arose. However, during this initial phase, there weren't strict rules or formalized guidelines that defined specific expectations for mentors or anything to outline the structure and learning objectives for the project volunteers or that the project volunteers or interns would undertake. It was a more organic, less structured approach based on individual staff initiative and available tasks that might be on the plate at any given time. Now, while that initial approach was less structured, it is important to acknowledge that there were real benefits and positive outcomes that emerged during that first decade of the program. First was the fact that the individuals consistently reaching out to us demonstrated a high level of public interest in the work we do at the State Archives. It showed that people in the community, students, and aspiring professionals valued the opportunity to gain experience with us and contribute to preserving Utah's history. This was very valuable feedback in and of itself. Second, although there weren't formal requirements, the potential availability of an intern or volunteer often encouraged our staff to really dig in and engage in good project planning. It prompted them to think about tasks that could be packaged into meaningful projects, even if it was just available on an if and when basis. This helped identify potential work and fostered some internal capacity for utilizing resources when they became available. Another advantage, significant, was that the program effectively created a potential pool of job candidates with whom we had direct experience. We got to see their skills, their work ethic, and their fit with our organization firsthand. Many individuals who started out as interns or volunteers under this model later successfully applied for and transitioned into permanent positions on our staff, bringing valuable institutional knowledge with them. And finally, the program sometimes provided unexpected opportunities to develop or strengthen partnerships with allied organizations. For example, volunteers or interns might come through connections with groups like Family Search or academic programs, and this helped us foster collaboration and share learning between institutions. So those were some of the real positives from our sort of first iteration, but there were also some cons or some negatives. First, there was not a high level of administrative oversight that was dedicated specifically to the program. Much of the responsibility for defining projects, training, mentoring, and day-to-day supervision was offloaded onto individual staff members who were interested in hosting an intern or a volunteer. And while they often did this enthusiastically, this added a significant and sometimes unsupported workload to their regular duties, which could lead to inconsistencies in the experience that we provided. Second, the standing invitation model made it very hard to predict if or when volunteers or intern resources would actually be available for any given project. Staff might have ideas for great projects, but it was difficult for them to plan effectively around the uncertainty of knowing when a volunteer or an intern would be available. They couldn't reliably incorporate the assistants into their long-term work plans because they didn't know if somebody suitable would apply or when that would happen. So this often limited the scope of projects interns could be assigned to. Finally, the lack of clear guardrails, including established expectations on a standardized application project or defined project scopes, occasionally led to less than ideal interactions. Sometimes, due to a mismatched expectation or skill level, situations would arise where more staff time and effort were put into managing an internship than work was actually realized from the project. This wasn't beneficial for the staff, the mentor, or the intern, and it highlighted the need for better structure to ensure that placements were consistently productive and positive, and it was overall a positive experience for everyone involved. So, after nearly a decade of practice, we recognized that there were some pretty big areas for improvement. Fortunately, and maybe unfortunately, a couple of key developments around 2020 created the right conditions for us to meaningfully address some of the challenges and revamp our program. A big one, by 2020, we had invested strategically in the creation of an outreach program that was run by a communications specialist. We started this in 2018, and this was significant because it created an organizational home within our institution that had the capacity to provide centralized oversight for the recruitment, onboarding, and general administrative management of volunteers and interns. Having this structure in place was a crucial prerequisite for running a more formalized and supportive program. Second, like everyone, our operations were significantly impacted by the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. While it was disruptive in countless ways, the necessary adjustments ended up providing an unexpected space to pause the existing informal program that we had. This pause wasn't planned, of course, but it gave us a unique opportunity to take a step back and begin seriously discussing a comprehensive overhaul. And instead of just restarting the old model when conditions allowed, we used that time to strategically rethink our approach to all of it. The clear goal emerging from these discussions was to design a new program structure that would significantly improve the quality of the projects that we offered, and most importantly, enhance the overall learning experience and value for our interns and our volunteers. So this confluence of having the right administrative structure in place via our outreach program, combined with the operational pause afforded by the pandemic, created a really ideal window to redesign our approach from the ground up. So, taking that advantage of that opportunity, we made several strategic decisions aimed at creating a more structured, valuable, and professional experience. First, we decided to move away from the anytime application model and implemented a semester-based system. We now recruit for distinct fall, spring, and summer cohorts, and this provides much needed predictability for everybody involved. It allows us to streamline our recruitment and onboarding into definite periods. It aligns well with academic calendars, which is helpful for student interns. And importantly, it enables our staff mentors to plan meaningful projects more effectively, knowing exactly when their interns are going to start and when they're going to finish. Secondly, we made a conscious effort to create a truly professional experience for our interns, treating it more like a structured entry-level position than a casual volunteering opportunity. This meant implementing formal processes from beginning to end, including structured recruitment with clear position descriptions, standardized onboarding, including necessary training and setting clear expectations up front, defined project goals, regular check-ins, and finally, an offboarding procedure that including asking for feedback opportunities when a project wrapped up. The goal is to provide a consistently high-quality experience that offers a genuine professional development opportunity for those who are giving their time to us. And third, this was a significant decision for us. We chose to offer $1,000 stipends for participants who successfully completed their internships. We recognize that interns provide immense value to us, and offering a stipend acknowledges that contribution. More importantly, it makes the opportunity more accessible and equitable. It helps offset potential costs for interns like transportation or time away from paid work, allows for a broader range of candidates who might otherwise be unable to afford an unpaid position, and the investment signals our commitment to the value of the interns and the quality of the program. So with those key decisions made, how does the program actually function day to day or semester to semester? We've implemented a structured process to ensure consistency and quality. It starts internally. Before each cohort period, we put out an internal call to our staff for potential projects and mentors. Staff propose specific time-bound projects suitable for an intern, outline the tasks, the learning objectives, and the required skills they're going to need to do the work. They also identify who will serve as a dedicated mentor. This ensures we have a meaningful, well-defined project ready to go before we recruit interns. Once projects are selected internally, we issue an external call for applicants, advertising the available intern opportunities as widely as we can, often through university career centers, professional listservs, and on our website. The recruitment process itself is modeled on our human resource processes and best practices. This includes formal applications, structured interviews, and clear selection criteria. We treat it like a hiring for a professional position to ensure fairness and to find the best fit for both the intern and the project. Once candidates are selected, they go through a structured onboarding process. This isn't just a quick hello. It includes introductions to the team, necessary paperwork, orientation to our organization and our policies, specific training relevant to the project, and setting clear expectations and communication protocols with the mentor. This ensures they feel welcomed and prepared to start their project work effectively. The core of the experience is, of course, the project that they're working on. Interns work directly with their mentor on their assigned project, gain hands-on archival experience. We also make an effort to integrate them into our team, inviting them to relevant staff meetings, training sessions, or division events. This provides broader exposure to the workings of the state archives and helps them build professional connections. To successfully complete the program and receive the stipend, interns are expected to contribute at least 120 hours of project work during their cohort period. A portion of this often includes an online component, which might involve working with digital records, creating some kind of online content, a finding aid, participating in virtual meetings. We want something that they can show after their experience, that they had this experience with us and use it in their future career. And finally, we have a formal offboarding process. This includes the project wrap-up, providing feedback to the intern and receiving feedback back from them, discussing future goals. We also aim to maintain continued contact with our program alumni, keeping them informed about future opportunities and continuing to help them build their professional network. Beyond providing just a better experience for participants, the new structured approach to our volunteer and intern program has yielded significant benefits for our own internal processes and program development. First, having a predictable time-based system with distinct cohorts provides a natural cycle for evaluation. It creates the opportunity for us to conduct postmortems or review sessions after each cohort completes their term. This regular reflection allows us to discuss what worked well, what challenges arose for both the interns and the mentors, and identify specific ways to make iterative improvements to the program before the next cycle begins. It's a built-in mechanism for continuous learning and refinement, ensuring that the program doesn't become static. Second, while the overall program has more structure, we intentionally given mentors significant autonomy in how they manage their specific projects and guide their interns within that framework. This empowerment has had a really positive side effect. It's led to new ideas, workflows, or tools being tried and tested on a smaller scale within the context of an internship project. The mentors can then feel comfortable experimenting. When these experiments are successful, perhaps a new way to approach description, a useful tool for a digital file management, or a better method for quality control, they can then be evaluated and potentially adapted and scaled up as part of a standard process that can be used across the entire division. The internship projects, in effect, become a safe space to pilot innovations that can lead to broader organizational improvements. Building on that framework for continuous improvement, I'm going to talk about some of the specific enhancements that we've implemented to elevate the quality and consistency of the program. We now put a much greater emphasis on tightening up project plans before an intern starts. Mentors work to clearly define the scope, specific tasks, learning objectives, and deliverables for each project. This helps, again, ensure that the intern has a clear understanding of their role and the goals of the project from day one, which can lead to a more focused and productive experience, much like having a clear job description or project outline is essential to any professional setting. We've also established firm boundaries and clear expectations around what on-site versus off-site project work looks like. This provides clarity for both the intern and the mentor regarding scheduling, communication, and access to resources, whether the work involves handling physical collections in our building or working with digital materials remotely. This flexibility, managed with clear guidelines, is crucial in today's work environment. Recognizing that mentoring takes skill and time, we've developed enhanced guidance and support materials for our mentors. This includes best practices for supervision, setting expectations, providing feedback, and overall enhanced project management skill building. Supporting our mentors helps ensure a more consistent and positive experience for interns across the projects and with our teams. A key addition that's kind of new within our program is we now provide an archives fundamentals training session for each incoming cohort. Regardless of the project they're on, this gives all interns a baseline understanding of core archival principles, terminology, and the mission of the Utah State Archives and Record Service. It provides valuable context for their work and ensures everyone starts with a shared foundation of knowledge. We make a conscious effort to foster inclusion by inviting interns to participate in our relevant staff activities, like I mentioned. This includes team meetings, training sessions, division-wide events when those happen. This helps them feel like they're part of the broader team, which they are, and provides valuable networking opportunities and gives them insight into the day-to-day operations of our organization. And finally, we started an alumni celebration recognition as interns complete their program and move into the professional field, sometimes within the spaces that you all are in. This acknowledges their contribution and helps build a lasting professional network while celebrating their transition into the next phase of their career. Beyond those specific enhancements to the internship experience, the new structures also allowed us to evolve the program in other important ways. One positive outcome has been the annual growth of the internship program. The clarity and predictability of the cohort system have allowed us to better plan and scale our capacity. We've been able to accommodate more interns each semester than we typically could under the previous model. And I'm happy to share, in fact, that our current recruitment cycle we're right in the middle of it right now for summer 2025, and that cohort is shaping up to be the most active yet. We have more candidates applying for that semester than we've had up to this point. This growth reflects both increasing interest from potential interns and our improved ability to offer well-defined, meaningful projects thanks to the structure we've brought to it. Another crucial improvement has been establishing a clear distinction between what a formal internship project looks like and what volunteer opportunities look like for us. This has been essential for managing expectations and resources effectively. Our internships, as I've been discussing, are structured, project-based, tied to specific cohorts, require a set time of commitment, and offer up this opportunity for professional development. Separately, we've now defined what volunteer opportunities look like for our organization. These are designed to be self-paced and are offered exclusively online. Think tasks like remote transcription, indexing, metadata enhancement. These are things that individuals can contribute to flexibly on their schedule from anywhere. This makes volunteering accessible to a much broader audience who may not be seeking or able to commit to a full internship, but still want to contribute to the mission of our organization. Making this distinction ensures that potential participants understand the different levels of commitment and types of engagement available, and allows us to manage these different contributions appropriately. And with that, that is what I have. Thank you.
Okay, so I am presenting by myself today. Becca is not here with us, but our presentation today is more about how we got our internship program off the ground. And it's more of an academic setting. Jim, that was amazing. I want your slides. Learned so much from that. So as a new department chair in the cataloging and metadata department at BYU, Becca was on the lookout for ways to increase the use of student workers in our department. Our department is responsible in our library for archival processing, cataloging of the resulting finding aids, metadata for digitized archival material, and cataloging of monographs acquired by special collections. Library faculty at BYU are required to do some form of mentorship, and it can be difficult to be creative about that if you don't happen to have any research on your desk at the moment that would be conducive to a research assistant. So Becca was looking for ways to help both faculty and students. So in a conversation with BYU's Family History Program Coordinator, Becca learned that BYU is trying to create a master's degree program in family history and genealogy at BYU, which will take years to develop. But many of their undergrad students currently pursue library science master's degrees after they graduate. And so they were talking about ways in which the history and family history curriculum overlap with what we do in the library. And the professor was like, well, hey, do you want some interns from our department? That would help us out. And obviously would be beneficial for our department. So the professors put Becca in touch with the history department's internship coordinator, and we started up a internship program. So I, as the head of our archival processing section, explained that one of the challenges we've faced in the past is that archives interns have required such a commitment of my time that since they need to have something to show for their credit hours, and they come in with extremely minimal experience, and it needs to be all wrapped up in one semester. So you're always just like running. And just to clarify, my regular student employees, I usually task them with things that I'm told are comforting tasks, like migrating inventories and writing titles on folders. And they feel like really happy with that. And they usually don't want to learn more. And delegating more like staff tasks to students, it's led to a lot more reviewing and quality control. So for me, I'm like, as long as the students don't mind, I'm not going to go that direction. But with interns, it's a different story. So the history department described their past experiences with sending students to the library, and that the interns tended to spend a significant number of hours being exposed to just one aspect of archives work, such as digitization. And they tend to get limited exposure to other kinds of archives work that involve that historical research that they're looking for. So they was hoping there might be some way that they could incorporate multiple experiences into one semester. So their priorities were hands-on experience, paid work, which we can offer in the library, one main supervisor to liaise with the department and get that student stability. And then our priorities were getting the interns with actual potential interest in the archives field, doing something that actually helps us with our day-to-day work, and spending less time training and more time doing project and developing like a plug and play, like these modules that you're like, okay, you just pick it up and do it. So we came up with 6 modules with 6 faculty members in our department that are over each one. And I won't read through them and just because of time, but the archival processing is the one that I run. And we decided that the one formal supervisor would be me. And I would approve all the timesheets and check in on the timeline of each module so that the student moved through each of these. They would choose between either 2 credits or 3 credits every semester. So it's 2 or 3 modules. And I would also, as a supervisor, make sure that they were engaging with the process and having a good experience. So I developed a website, and I think I've linked it on the next page. And I wrote up a little bit more about some of the structure of this internship and what the expectations were. We wanted to have like not only technical skills, but professional skills that we were teaching. And the website took me like 6 months to create. And so anyway, this was a process. And so this also is a way that we can promote the internship and have people see what they're getting into before they start with us. So our pilot was in the fall of 2024. We had somebody come in who was referred from the history department, And she thrived under the 2 module experiences that she chose, but she also just really loved this Victorian Women's database module. And at the end of the semester, she became a research assistant. And so that was perfect for her. One of the lessons we learned was that the 2 credits worked out great. And that the documentation that this librarian had created was really simple, but it was very effective. So, and then just as an aside, we have another one of our supervisors that is working with our learning suite, learning management software to develop something with a little more structure. So this is one of our goals, is to maybe move all of our documentation into this format so that if any of our information overlaps, that we can save time.
You have 5 more minutes.
Oh, okay. So our second round was in the winter of 2025. We received an interested history major that was referred from the history department's webpage. He didn't want any credit. He just wanted to get some work experience. So he chose archival processing and creating biographical notes and geolocation tagging, and he was extremely enthusiastic and very productive. And so what we learned at the end of this, we hold a reflection, then call it like a postmortem, I like that, where we ask the student to just come in and present casually with all the supervisors and talk about like what they've learned and what they felt like we could have improved on. And some of his observations were that he didn't realize that there was like a job out there that actually rewarded his curiosity about everything in the world. That was something about himself that he learned. And that the most valuable skill that he had learned was how to apply his historical research in a variety of ways that took it farther than what he would learn in his history classes with his papers and stuff. He also felt like the core of an archivist was the ability to get immersed in a story and to love learning about a lot of different topics. So that was just an opinion, but I thought that was really interesting. The lesson we learned on that is that we need to watch our bandwidth, because as you can see on the webpage, we had to immediately be like, never mind, we can't do that because this student did all the work in one semester. And then in the spring 2025, going on right now, I have a student that wanted to do just archives. And I was like, great. And then like 5 minutes into it, I was like, okay, I learned my lesson. I don't have the time for this. Next time I'm gonna tell her she doesn't have a choice. She's got to do this sliced up internship. So future plans, we want to improve our documentation. I have a lot of documentation that's just like my standard stuff, and I want to make it more usable. We want to do specific project documentation. I want to like put information about careers and master's programs and et cetera into that documentation so that they can learn about it at their own pace. And then obviously we want to promote the program. We're hoping maybe one of our interns will want to go to a history class and talk about their experience there. Spread out the work. One of the biggest lessons I learned, reflecting at the end is very important. Recruiting opportunities are showing up in a variety of ways. I now have student employees that are showing interest, and I'm like, oh, we don't have room, but how about this internship? You can look at this website. We want to align that internship experience with the outcomes of a history class, the learning outcomes, so make it more like in alignment with a formal class on campus. And then our last lesson was just be flexible, because every semester seems to bring new surprises. So thank you so much.
Thanks to our speakers. We don't have time for questions, so I'm gonna let you speak to them during our break time if you do have any questions, but thanks again to our speakers for their presentations today.